Whose lane is it? Sharing the road with bicyclists. The Bicycle Friendly Advocacy Council in the villages is giving this presentation to keep our cyclists and cars safe. We really appreciate your taking the time to watch it. This area, and the villages specifically, is a terrific place to ride a bike. The League of American Bicyclists, which dates back to 1880, rates the villages as a gold-level bicycle-friendly community, which puts us in the top 5% of all rated communities in the United States. Ask any of your friends who rides bikes here, and they'll tell you this is the best community they've ever ridden bikes in. But even though it's great, it's not perfect. We have about a car-bike crash a month. It's good, but it can be better. So here's what we're going to cover in the next few minutes. Sharing the road, common crashes, bikes taking the lane, passing a cyclist, other problem areas, and what we teach cyclists. So let's dig in. Think about the different folks who use the roads. They drive, walk, cycle, take transit, rollerblade. Some of us, like pedestrians, cyclists, and rollerbladers, are technically vulnerable road users because while we're using the roads legally, we aren't protected by the large metal cage of a car like drivers have. Instead, we rely on smart, alert drivers like you to keep us safe. But no matter how much we all use the road, remember, all of us cyclists are people, just like you. And just like you, we want to be safe when we're using the road. And we're going to tell you how to do that in just the next few minutes. First, let's think about how to share the road, since cyclists and drivers are both legally entitled to use it. Some people are surprised to learn that under Florida law, as well as the law of every state, a bicycle is a vehicle. It must follow all the rules of the road, but it also gets all of the privileges of a vehicle, like right-of-way. Of course, a bike can't go as fast as a car, so some adjustment is needed to be made on how it's treated. An interesting fact, since bikes are vehicles with the same rights as a car, they enjoy priority over golf carts, like when merging into traffic. Here's an easy way to remember how to treat cyclists. They do best when they act and are treated by you like drivers of vehicles. I think of this as the golden rule of biking and driving. So what's the cause of bike-car crashes? Nationally, in about half of car-bike crashes, the driver is found at fault. As I said earlier, here in the villages and surrounding areas, we have just shy of a car-bike crash a month. It may not sound like a lot. It isn't. But if you are the cyclist in one of those, you can get banged up enough that it'll take months to recuperate, assuming you're still alive. And sadly, we had a fatality a few years ago when a cyclist was hit by a golf cart whose driver was blinded by early morning sun. The takeaway point from the data and the reason for educating both cyclists and motorists is that most of the time, both road users can do something to prevent a crash. So that's important about who ultimately gets the ticket, and more important that we can all watch out for each other and ourselves. The rest of the presentation shows you how to do just that. A big area of concern to drivers is when bikes take up a lane of traffic. They do this for a number of reasons, none of which is to irritate you drivers. Here's why they do it. First, it's the safest place to ride. The lanes are typically too narrow to share with a car and still have the 3 feet of space between the car and the bike that the law requires. If we must stay way right on the roadway, we can veer off and crash when a car shares our lane. Second, riding on sidewalks, even when it's legal, is often unsafe, and it makes you look a little childish as well. Third, it prevents bikers from getting buzzed, which means being passed close at high speed, or sideswipe, which means getting hit. Both are dangerous. Fourth, at some intersections, you need to be in the middle of the lane to trigger the light. Fifth, we'll take the lane to get ready for a left-hand turn. We train our cyclists to get in the rightmost lane that's going in our direction. A couple of more reasons we take up the lane on purpose. If there's debris, like trash or a branch or glass that could blow a tire in our lane, that's a problem. It's interesting that cars often can't see what we have to swerve to avoid. The lane is too narrow to share, and it almost always is. If we want to make sure that drivers see us, and if we want to make sure to avoid the door zone. Here's the deal on the mysterious door zone. Have you ever been in the situation where you're parallel parked, You open your driver door and you just miss a bike riding past you didn't see when you opened it? Well, it happened to me once, but I was the bike rider and it didn't just miss the car door I didn't see open. I fell so hard the batteries popped out of my BlackBerry as I slid across the pavement right in front of the mayor's house. It was embarrassing, painful, and expensive. I do not want to do that again. So how do you avoid knocking a bike down riding past your opening driver's door? It's called the Dutch Reach, where it was added to driver training after a fatal dooring in Amsterdam. It's an easy way to avoid a nasty accident. Here's how you do it. You're sitting in your car driver's seat ready to exit. Instead of opening the door with your left hand, you reach across your body and open it with your right hand. You'll see that it turns your body and your line of sight so that you can see a cyclist coming and stop opening your door, and so avoid the accident. Let's talk about two of the most common car-bike crashes and how to avoid them. First is the right hook or overtaking turn. This is a common crash that we cyclists worry about a lot. You're riding your bike in the right lane and an overtaking car passes you on the left and pulls in front of you to make a right turn, cutting you off and possibly hitting you. This is one of the reasons in the villages bike cart lanes end before the important intersections and make the bikes and carts merge into the car lane. That way it's hard for a car to pull left around you and cut you off. What do you do to prevent it? Easy. Don't pass a bike and then turn right in front of them when you're coming up to an intersection. You wouldn't do that to a car. Don't do it to a bike. Slow down and give the bike lots of room to go straight through. Here's another risky situation. It's called the opposite of the right hook we just talked about. It's the left cross. Think about it like you're a boxer. If you use a right hook and follow up with a left cross, that means some biker is going to get beat up. This time you're turning left at an intersection and you don't see the bike across the street that's coming straight. So you turn in front of his bike and maybe hit him. So how do you prevent this? You do it just like you would avoid a driver coming straight across the intersection when you want to turn left. Slow down if there's oncoming traffic and wait to turn. Look out for oncoming bikes. It's surprisingly how hard to judge their speed and distance is. Particularly look for oncoming cyclists who may be hidden behind an oncoming car that is turning left right in front of you. One thing you have been and will be doing is passing a lot of cyclists because cars are faster than bikes. This should be a common, safe maneuver, but there are smart ways to do it. First, treat bikes just like any other slow-moving vehicle. Second, remember that you are allowed to cross a double line to pass so that you can keep your 3 feet of distance from the bike as long as the way is clear. Third, if there's oncoming traffic, don't pass until it's clear. It's funny that I need to tell you to avoid a head-on collision, but bike safety experts believe it should be said. 4, get back in your lane when you can see the cyclist in your mirror. That way you won't be cutting them off and forcing them to crash. Here's how to pass cyclists at intersections. Smart bikers will take the lane to prevent being right hooked by cars overtaking them to make a right turn. So check for bikers coming from behind in your blind spot. Drivers should move into the bike lane to make their right-hand turn when it's clear of cyclists. And remember the right hook and don't pass and then pull in front of a biker to make your right turn. Here's some general considerations when passing a bicyclist. Check your blind spots. It's very easy for a cyclist to be hidden in them because they are so much smaller than a car. If you're driving a big car or truck, give extra room when you pass to allow for your wide mirrors, dual wheels, and trailers, which can hit a cyclist. And remember that large profile trucks can create wind blasts at high speed that can knock a biker down. Here's a few more things to think about that can be risky for bikers when you're driving. Obviously, distracted driving is risky not only for us, but for the drivers themselves. So don't text and drive. It's not only dangerous, it's illegal. Sun glare and fog are real problems because you can't see where you're driving. Remember that I told you about the 80-year-old friend of mine who was hit and killed by a golf cart whose driver was blinded in the early morning sun? It doesn't happen very often, but it happened to him. If the sun is glaring in your eyes, pull down your sun visor to make sure you can see. Illegal courtesies are, for example, when a car illegally stops in a circle to let cyclists enter it. They are being courteous to let us in, but they risk getting rear-ended for their kindness. We bikers are trained to wave them on so they don't get hit for being nice. Avoid parking in bike lanes. It's illegal in Florida, and it makes bikes swerve out into traffic when they should be staying in their protected lane. Kids on bikes can be pretty dangerous, so keep a close eye on them and be ready to stop really, really quickly. Speeding around bikes is extra dangerous because you don't know if they'll be swerving to get away from a hazard you can't even see. Give them plenty of space and slow down around them. Finally, I'll let you in on some secret information, what we teach bicyclists about riding around cars. That way you'll be able to predict what we are going to do. First, take the lane when you need to make sure cars stay far enough away from you for safety. Second, show up and be predictable. Virtually every biker who is hit by a car will hear the driver say, "I never saw you." So wear bright clothing and put lights on your bike. Third, ride on the right. It's where slower vehicles are supposed to ride to be safe. Fourth, stop at all stop signs and lights. You may see cyclists who slow down or run stop signs, but it's not only illegal, it's dangerous and stupid. 5. At intersections, the first car or bike to arrive is the first to be able to enter the intersection. These are standard yield rules for all vehicles. 6. Yield for lane changes. Fighting with a car to get ahead of them in their lane is a recipe for disaster. 7. When stopping at an intersection, get into the correct lane, which is the farthest right lane for the direction you want to go through the intersection. We also tell cyclists to signal when they're turning so cars can avoid them. Notice that riders second from left and far right on this diagram are both signaling a right turn. This is different from driving a car since you can't use the far right hand signal because your arm is inside the car. Here's a summary of what we just covered in this presentation. Bicyclists are drivers of vehicles. Both cars and bikes are responsible for bike wrecks. Intersections and driveways are great sources for bicycles that unexpectedly enter your road. Remember why cyclists take the lane. It's not just to irritate you, it's to keep them safe. Give bikes 3 feet of clearance when you pass them. It's the law. Drivers and cyclists need to share the road to keep us all safe. Thanks very much for watching. We bikers hope we don't meet you by accident. And remember, be careful out there.